Hi, this is Steph Chalk, Executive Director of the Retirement Advisor University, and welcome to the February 2019 Trial Status Call. We are going to have the agenda that we're going to go through first, and then at the conclusion of this, the agenda, we will have the course, and we're going to cover TC 360, which is something that we touched on last year, I believe back in roughly in August, but I'm going to drill down on it a little bit as far as how plan sponsors work with establishing a retirement plan committee, as well as how they would run a retirement plan committee. So there's a couple of nuances, and there have been some occurrences in the industry that make it ever more important that a plan committee operates and functions prudently. So that's why we're going to concentrate on this again, and I'm going to show you some, some drill down support on retirement plan committees. So the CKP designation by the numbers is something we'll cover right away. What's going on with TROW and this year, and this is our 10th anniversary of establishing TROW. I know a lot of the people who are on the line today were with us at the beginning when we first went out to UCLA, and we've been building on that ever since. Talk a little bit about partnerships that we're in, existing partnerships, and what might be down the road as well. Talk a little bit about TPSU and the CKPF, the Money Market Directory Scholarship. We'll talk about 401k TV, and then we will conclude with the course. The course is qualified for 1 hour of CE. You can use that 1 hour in either of the buckets for the Retirement Advisor University CE, so you can use it in self-study or in-person credit. So with that, we'll get on here. There are now active 733 CKP designation holders, and there are 194 individuals who are matriculating TROW right now. At this point, we have 55 individuals registered for the May TROW session, and we are pretty confident that this is going to be almost a standing room only, because it is the anniversary of the 10-year of offering TROW. So again, for those of you, and I know some of you who are on the line who were with us in the beginning when we established the program, I would just say thank you for your help on the front end, and we're glad to have you with us for the ride the entire way. What's going on at UCLA? Well, we'll have TROW for the spring of 2019. We'll have May 1, 2, and 3 will be the program on campus at the Anderson School of Management, the Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And then in November, we will be meeting on the 6th, 7th, and 8th of November for the fall session. So those dates are on the screen now, but you'll always be able to find those dates if you like at the TROW website, www.trauniversity.com. Most of you are aware, but we will be holding group study sessions in advance of the program at the Anderson School at UCLA. The 2-day group study session will cover levels 2 and level 3 of the coursework. So for those of you who are on the line who are anticipating coming to UCLA in either May or November, this is where we would actually go through the actual courses for level 2 and level 3. Anybody who comes out for that purpose in association with attending the TROW CKP designation education at UCLA, we do require that level 1 coursework is completed prior to sitting for UCLA designation exam, as well as prior to sitting for the group study session courses as well. So what's new? We have some new courses. We just concluded a trial master class. We concluded that in November of 2018. I'll talk a little bit about that. We'll talk about continuing education, what we're doing along that line. I will give you some insight onto what we're doing with TPMI this year, as well as touch on TPSU and TRACE. And we will also discuss a little bit about 401k TV. So, and we will, again, we'll conclude with the course. Courses recently added are MB 221, which is Understanding Fee Benchmarking, something that's it's very front of the burner right now on a lot of committees lists, as well as on the DOL list. We'll also talk about OP 251, Financial Wellness and Helping Employees. We've added MB 270, which is how, and this is a course at UCLA on campus only, but that's how one would apply everything they've been exposed to at TRAL, and how you would incorporate that with the master's class and with TPMI programs that we run, where we educate advisors on an ongoing basis. TC 260, you're going to see a piece of that today, running a successful retirement plan committee. So we have, in addition to TC 260, we have 4 other courses that we've added around running a retirement investment committee or a benefits committee, establishing the committee and running the committee. So the TC 260 is a course that advisors can sit for to learn how to assist people in running committees, those who are serving in a fiduciary capacity or as plan administrator. It's an education for the advisor. We also have 3 subsequent courses after TC 260, and those are courses actually for plan sponsors, but we don't let those courses out to the plan sponsors unless they have someone who's been educated on TC 260, and then that's how an advisor would get access to the subsequent courses of 261, 262, 263 to deliver to the plan sponsors themselves. And those courses are approved for continuing education credit for the plan sponsors, approved by HRCI as well as the Society for Human Resources Management. Courses that we're going to be adding and finalizing in 2019 are 2 online courses, both in stable value. We ran those courses at the group study session in last November. There was quite a bit of interest in stable value, more than many of us had anticipated would occur, but I guess everything goes in cycles and people are looking at stable value now. Next would be cash balance plans, and the cash balance plan course has been updated for changes, as well as for increased clarity on what's going on with regard to what you can do and what you're permitted to do and what you are no longer permitted to do within a cash balance structure. Just a little bit of summary and look back. In 2018, we conducted the TRAL Masters classes. Those were business management classes for elite advisors. Those were run for plan advisors with $250 million in assets or greater, and it was by application and invitation. We held those both at the Gleacher Center, and we held it at the Luskin Conference Center at UCLA. We had also done that in 2017, conducted those same programs, and we're looking at something a little bit different for 2019, and I'll get into that in a minute. For continuing education, and I've left on here that CE, for those of you who have not completed CE, you have actually, the CE is due for TRAL on December 31 of each calendar year. You have until the 15th of March to actually submit, and after that, then you're in a non-compliance status. We are somewhat liberal, I would say, in what we will accept as CE. Our requirement is we want to make sure that you do have continuing education. The difference, I guess, in what we're doing is we feel that continuing education does not necessarily need to come from TROW courses. So you have the option of taking courses from other designations that may apply, and you just self-submit. Everything with our courses from a CE standpoint is self-submission. We require the 12 hours of continuing ed each calendar year, 6 hours of self-study, and 6 hours of in-person. So the deadline on submission is December 31st, and we don't really consider someone in a lapsed status until March the 15th. So there's still time to get in if you haven't submitted yet. To submit, go to www.trowuniversity.com and click on the Continuing Education tab, and you have an option to either submit continuing education or to read the CE policy. So this is a very brief summary of that policy. Locations and events that would satisfy the CE requirement for the in-person, the NAPA Summit coming up in Las Vegas, April 8th, 9th, and 10th. Plan Advisor National Conference in Orlando in September. The NAPA Fly-In Forum in Washington, D.C. The NAPA Fly-In Forum is unique in that this 2-day program would fulfill all of your 12 hours of CE. That's a rigorous program that NAPA has put together for advisors, and it's for the 2 days you're working well more than 12 hours, and it's an important event for us as advisors. It's important for the plan sponsors, and it's important for the plan participants. So we give that 12 hours because you're committing a lot more than 12 hours when you do attend. All of those would need to be submitted on the website because all of our hours are self-submission. Also, Morningstar's ETF conference, if you were to get the NAPA CPFA designation, that can be submitted as continuing ed. And if you want to further education around what we cover in group study, you can choose to attend group study sessions as well. That would count for continuing ed. Anything that we would do from a practice management standpoint, educating, would also be admissible as continuing ed. And the TPSU adjunct lecturer training, that education also satisfies the CE requirement. So there are a number of ways that you can satisfy CE. This is just a summary that captures probably 85% of the people in our industry who are very serious about the retirement plan industry. If you have other programs that you want to attend, you can submit that in advance of attending, or just send me a note and ask, does this qualify or satisfy for CE? And I'll shoot a response back. Once you've gone, then it's at the point, once you've attended a program or once you've conducted education through courses, etc., then I would just say submit that and we'll go from there. Partnerships, we will be we do have a double booth at the NAPA Summit this year, so you can stop by and see us in 335, I believe it is, where we're going to be located. Also, currently, Fred Barstein is a contributing editor for the Investment News Retirement Supplement and regularly appears there. I also write for NAPA, the magazine, NAPAnet, the magazine. So we're trying to stay out in front of things, just on the cusp of what's going on in the industry for everyone's benefit. Another partnership that we have is with associations, and comes through the Plan Sponsor University, where we partner with those associations in the industry where we consider a lot of the movers and shakers to be, but not only movers and shakers, but people who are fiduciaries on the retirement plan and or plan administrators, or have some kind of role where they touch the retirement plan. So HRCI, SHRM, CPE for CPAs, SEBS, and the American Payroll Association. So we're close with each of those, and the TPSU programs also account for CE for those who attend those programs. And we're active throughout the country with TPSU programs. This year we will conduct approximately 80 programs throughout the country at different colleges and universities. There is a reason, though, that you should care about that, and that is the fact that we are out touting the virtues of a CKP designation holder. So as of the end of 2018, we had 46 zones that were occupied and put on roughly 78 programs. Last year, we anticipate that we will conduct 80 this year. So the point here is that we are the individuals who deliver the CKP programs, the individuals who deliver the TPSU programs do hold the CKP designation. And we do tout that with individuals while they are in the room, what a CKP designation is, what the benefits are of that. We don't spend a lot of time on it, but we do mention it. When we are contacting plan sponsors for them to attend a TPSU program, we do spend a bit of time on what an individual has to do in order to attain the CKP designation, and the fact that all of our CKP adjunct lecturers hold the designation itself. So we're contacting by direct mail probably over right at 20,000 or a little over. We are using email to contact over 60,000 individuals, and via telephone, we anticipate that we will contact over 250,000 plan sponsors during 2019. We've educated over 5,000 fiduciaries through this month of this year. So we have quite a track record, and this is our 7th year that we've been holding the TPSU programs. So we're quite pleased with how that's been going and the responses we've been getting, not only from the plan advisors, but also from the plan sponsors themselves. And again, in each of these cases, we do highlight the CKP designation, and we're on an active mission to have CKP become the recognized designation by plan sponsors when people walk out and through the doors of a new prospect or of a client. It's somewhat that not a lot of people have heard of, and where the CKP designation rolls off the tip of somebody's tongue, but the affiliation and the collaboration with UCLA Anderson School of Management is something that resonates with every plan sponsor that you'll go in the door with. So just keep that in mind, and don't be bashful about speaking of the collaboration with UCLA Anderson School of Management. It's a wonderful brand that we tout strongly, and I know for those of you who have been to the program, you understand what it does and the education that's delivered there. We continue to have more and more progress with SHRM and success along that line. Just we're active in, I would say, half the zones that we're in. Well, probably closer to 30 of the zones that we're in this year, where we have active outreach programs with those SHRM associations. So the emphasis here is that, again, that the CKP designation would be recognized in the plan sponsor community. Also, 401k TV is, again, another active outreach as well as an education tool. So on 401k TV right now, we have over 60,000 that we are sending to each 3 days of each week, and that 90% of those are plan sponsors. We're also using social media where we're mentioning the virtues of a CKP designee. We also conduct interviews, and most of the interviews that we have are at the conclusion of a TPSU program, but some are when Fred is meeting with somebody in the industry, such as I know he has met with industry leaders at Allianz and AllianceBernstein, also with Department of Treasury, and a lot of those videos are accessed every day by individuals who say, you know, I'm thinking of this issue, I'm thinking of whether it's a design issue or whether it's a restructuring of investments. People will access 401k TV and just type in the search engine the topic they want, and we're also being accessed by probably anywhere between 10 and 15,000 advisors. So it's designed for plan sponsors with plan sponsor content, but advisors like to see what plan sponsors are actually thinking and doing. So those are the highlights as of right now. What I'd like to do is move into TC 360. Again, this is creating and running a successful retirement plan committee, and it's important because as you've seen in a lot of the court cases recently, the lack of a committee is almost the kiss of death for a plan sponsor, and the lack of documentation is really difficult for a plan sponsor to discuss their way out of. And when it comes to procedure and how did you do something, or why did you make a decision as a plan sponsor? You know, why did you put this fund in, or what other funds did you look at? So without the documentation, that's a very difficult conversation to have. The question is, how are you going to get to the destination of retiring all of these plan participants at a plan level if you don't really have a roadmap or a plan for doing so? So, a little corny schematic there, but if you don't know where you're going, pretty much any road will take you there, or no roads will take you there. So this image comes directly from one of the courses that is designed for the actual plan sponsors to view. So it's, you and I can, as advisors, we can talk and have a conversation around why a committee is important, et cetera, but we really try to boil it down and drill it home to a plan sponsor, and this is just part of that. So definitely the importance of properly passing plan-related authority from an organization to a plan committee. That's a big miss for a lot of committees, and in some cases, plan sponsors or even committee members will say, "Oh yeah, we put together a committee, and the committee runs the 401k." Well, what you need to make sure of is that the committee is actually formed in a methodology with proper documentation, that it can stand up to the scrutiny of plaintiff's counsel in the event something happens in the plan and everybody starts pointing fingers at the company either from a committee standpoint or an investment standpoint, etc. So it's not just enough to have a committee, but you want to make sure that the authority passes properly from an organization, whether that's from the board of directors or whether that's from the president or whether it's from a CEO, however that gets to the formation of the committee, that should be documented. And just a quick clarification should be made that yes, this entity that passed this authority actually had the authority to give the oversight to the committee. So it's a nuance, but it's very important when push comes to shove and when things don't go well. So you also want to identify committee members, and the course itself will drill into how to identify committee members and doing that through a charter. Also talk about the steps for establishing a plan committee. Once the authority's been passed, then then there needs to be some process for establishing that committee. The steps for evaluating investment options, I think we're all pretty versed in that. Don't really need to spend time on that. The steps for evaluating administrative services. Administrative services are a bit different than obviously the investment side of the evaluation, and entails not so much as a specific drill down, but the questions are different for the administrative services obviously than they are from the investment services and the investment options themselves. So it takes it's probably not done as frequently as the investment options are analyzed. However, the administrative services are equally important to the success of a plan and to the success that a participant has in the outcomes. So it should be taken seriously and performed on a regular basis. And then
you were saying
the documentation side and document, as so many of my colleagues have drilled into me and you as well over the years, the need for documentation is there for the actions of the committee. So that's this is the kind of level and the kind of detail that we are showing and sharing with plan sponsors. Now, in a course for advisors, that is all boiled down to this image. So, is a committee required? No, absolutely not. There's no requirement. It doesn't say anywhere that a plan sponsor or that a plan administrator has to have a committee, or they have to operate and function with a committee. But if there is no committee, then the ownership of the organization or the board of director group will become a de facto fiduciary. So, and this has a check mark on it, and the reason is we really believe that this is an area where you can make a difference with your, you obviously want to button up your own clients, but in looking at other people's plans, how the committee was formed and how it was how the authority was passed is an area where an advisor can make a difference, differentiate themselves from a lot of other people who are coming to the table in prospecting the same plan sponsor. And why would what's the logic behind a committee? And primarily, it's that a committee will have an improved thought process over what just an individual might come up with. So when you have more people, you have easily understood, you have more ideas, more concepts come to the table, and when you're delivering and you get pushed a little bit by other committee members, it just makes the whole process better. So sometimes I've seen it be very beneficial to have somebody on the committee who's not not well versed and not astute in the oversight and the plan itself, because they will ask very basic questions and they'll force the committee to think a little differently. And I've also seen where committees will put a retiree on the board as a committee member because it's called a retirement plan, and in many cases the people running the plan and overseeing from a committee standpoint aren't near retirement or even close to retirement. So a lot of what I would consider forward-thinking committees over the years have placed a retiree or two on those committees. So just something to think about, a little different way to look at it. The committee itself and a group decision, that will certainly ensure that you have a documented, prudent process. So if it's one individual who's making the decisions, coming up with the ideas and saying this is the way we're going to do it, or this is the fund we're going to move from Fund A to Fund B, an individual in a lot of cases might think that, well, I'll remember that, and I know why I did it, so it doesn't really need to be documented. They can always ask me. But the reality is a committee is going to force an entity, being that committee, to document how they made it, how the information they used to make a decision, as well as the thought process of reaching that decision, and then how to implement that decision. So it's somewhat of a safeguard from that standpoint. So the committee itself, the group decision would be around creating and overseeing plan functions, operations, and the investments. Group decisions are better for a plan for the participants as well as the company that actually sponsors the plan. Next, and now we're back to the detail that we get into with a plan sponsor themselves and with the committee members. These black and white images come directly from what a plan sponsor might see when they're taking these courses. The key considerations for building a committee, first of all, one would be to understand the client's organizational culture, because that's going to help them determine the fiduciary, or who is a fiduciary, or who the group of fiduciaries are, and they'll make the decision, is there a need for the committee? So most often it's going to be a resounding yes. There will be a need for the committee, and certainly if a company wants to protect its own officers and the board of directors, the committee would be the right place to do that. And in reality, a committee is going to function and operate with more rules and more regularity than either a standalone officer of the company or any other individual. So the task is, in building the committee, who in the organization would appoint the committee, which we talked about a little bit. Where does that authority reside now? Where does that authority reside now? And does the authority reside somewhere other than where it's been passed? We always recommend reviewing the documentation. So is there a place to name the committee as the plan administrator? A lot of companies will name a plan administrator, but it's not always formally determined how that plan administrator got named, or how they were so deemed to be the plan administrator. So documentation and certainly having the process helps if you need it in the end of the day. So next, determine if the plan document has sufficient language to provide guidance for the committee. So the document itself will give some direction, and depending on where the document emanated from, if it was an individually drafted plan, or if it was a off-the-shelf plan, it will have a different bearing on what the plan looks like and how the committee is formed. So if you want, you're going to develop and adopt a charter and then appoint the committee members. So make sure that the service provider documents match and reflect the fiduciary role of the committee. This is an area where we see over the years there have been court cases, and we've seen evidence of that the documents don't really match or reflect the committee and the committee's decisions and or the committee authority. So perfect example is when a company has an investment committee that's appointed to oversee investments, and at the end of the day, the investment committee is approving loans and many other things that aren't really investment functions. So the point here is make sure that the committee is properly named and that the committee is not overstepping their bounds or that the committee is not failing to deliver something that they are bound to do. So what you and your plan sponsor actually name the committee does matter, and we'll get into that in a little bit. So again, about passing the authority to the committee, we've talked about this, and these are the options. CEO comes from the CEO board of directors through a board resolution, through the organizational charter, or some other method. So, and again, these are highlighted with these check marks because these are areas where a good retirement plan advisor can distinguish themselves in the marketplace, distinguish themselves from being different than others who come through the door to pitch product or pitch only investments to a committee. Again, a little bit on the committee charter itself and the basics around that. Again, these black and whites are what goes to the plan sponsor for them to help make their decisions on running a committee and putting it in place. So the one thing that as the advisor there's to remember is there's really no only one way to set up a committee, but committees will have a lot of things in common. So I mean, some of this is very basic, but again, this is targeted to a committee that is operating and functioning, or a plan sponsor who's thinking about setting a committee. So put everything into a written document, establish in the document the purpose of the document and the purpose of the plan, and define the roles of the committee. So from what I've seen historically, sometimes that can be a lengthy page, and sometimes that can be a very short paragraph with a couple of bullet points. So I think it makes sense to address it so everybody knows what the responsibility is, but there's no right or incredibly wrong way to do it as long as you're going to do it. Identify the scope and any limits of the committee duties. So if there are multiple committees, such as if there's an administrative committee and an investment committee, you want to make sure that those lines are clarified between or among each of those committees. Now, unfortunately, as the retirement plan advisor, a lot of times the task will be yours to draw those lines of demarcation or the delineation of where the duties and where the activities start and stop. But again, you're adding value in that process, so it's not a terrible thing to be responsible for, but it also somewhat ensures that you're going to be present for each of the committees when they're meeting. Identifying the number of committee members. Most people want to have an odd number from a voting standpoint, and that works fine if everybody shows up. But I don't think it's a hard and fast rule that you have odd or even. I think you want people who are going to take the position seriously and be willing to learn how to operate and function as a plan fiduciary retirement committee member, because it's different than most other jobs they've probably been in. So you want to identify the committee members, whether you do that by title or by function or by experience or another method, whatever it is, but you want to definitely know that if you always have the head of Human Resources and the CFO on the committee. Those are roles that by virtue of a function that they deliver and that by virtue of their title possibly, they are on the retirement committee. Establishing a process for the appointment, removal, and resignation of a committee member. So this is, I would venture to say 90% of committees have people still on those committees who have left the company, possibly they're retired, but their name is still in the minutes as having been on the committee without ever resigning and without being removed from that responsibility. So that's an area where you can probably help people clean up right away, is to just conduct a review with your committee members and the committees and just go through, okay, we've got these 5 people on the committee, let's go back and track when they were added and how they were added, and are there 3 people who have left the company who are actually still, by virtue of documentation, should still be on the committee. So it's, a lot of this is considered nitpicky, and I've actually heard that from people, but when push comes to shove, if you don't have the documentation to thwart the efforts of plaintiff's counsel, you have to do it some other way than having the documentation. So then have a process for a committee member to accept or acknowledge that they have joined the committee. Things get a little bit more real for people when they have to sign that, oh yes, I am on the committee, and they have to acknowledge that in writing. So it's one thing to say, yeah, come on, meet in the conference room at 3 o'clock, and we're going to have a retirement. We have our quarterly retirement meeting, and you can join the committee, and they come in and they observe or they contribute, etc. But when you let them know that you are in a fiduciary position as a member of the committee, and we want you to acknowledge that, it gets real for people. So I think that's a very good piece of advice and a very good component to add to a checklist for anybody who is overseeing a committee or appointing people to the committees. So identifying how the committee can vote, and this has changed over recent years, but it just makes sense to have it documented if they can call in their vote, or if they can telephonically be on a conference call and do it, because there's a lot of different ways that people get together and communicate today. So, and then identify your voting requirements. So are you going to operate with a majority or a quorum, or what are your rules going to be for determining whether you have sufficient trustees or sufficient fiduciaries at the committee table in order to make a true decision. So what's in a name, and we touched on this a little bit, and this is back to the course that is for the advisors only, but we all are familiar with investment committee. Investment committee is obviously the most frequently used, one that's most frequently referred to, but I've been in a lot of investment committee meetings where they address many things other than investments. So years ago, I didn't realize what a trap that could be, but it certainly is a trap now that, now that many people are looking at and reviewing the minutes, and not necessarily always people on your side of the table that could possibly pull out the minutes. So we have listed here 5 of the names that are frequently used for committees, and probably the broadest it would be retirement committee or benefits committee. So if you have those monikers on your committee, you probably are not going to step in the mud too much on any decisions. But if you have the title of fiduciary committee on your committee, and that committee starts making decisions that are not fiduciary decisions normally, there's a chance that they could be drawn in and be seen as fiduciary decisions because these decisions are being made by the fiduciary committee. So this must be a fiduciary decision. So it doesn't take a lot to clean it up and to keep it accurate. So again, an area where you can make a difference with your plan participants as well as your plan committees, plan sponsors, just letting them know that you're going to keep your eye on the ball, and we don't want to be making X type of decisions in a fiduciary committee meeting or in an investment committee meeting. So in summary, I'm going to just go on these top 5 interests of retirement committee. Number 1 is stay out of jail free, right? You don't want to do anything that's going to put you in a bad stead and put you and or your plan sponsors or anybody it's associated with. You just want to keep it clean. And I used to tell people that it probably takes 15 to 20% more time to run everything buttoned up and by the book and with all the documentation than it does to just run a plan. So why wouldn't you take the extra 15 to 20% of time and do it absolutely to the letter of the law and make sure you've got everything where it needs to be in your fiduciary file. Retirement committee members want efficiencies of meeting time. I firmly believe that you can differentiate yourself by operating and functioning with a committee with either a dashboard or a summary sheet or some way when you walk in that room and you have, let's say you have 6 people on the committee, and if you figure out what the hourly rate is of all those 6 people, sometimes you'll have outside counsel as well, but it's your job to be efficient when you walk in the door. And I think running meetings efficiently is an area where advisors can make a difference today. They can stand out by doing that. Most plan sponsors aren't really worried about your fiduciary status as the advisor. They're more worried about what their own responsibility is and how they can manage that risk. So again, kind of old DOL language or old language, but it doesn't really matter what status you're in. It does from a documentation standpoint, but the plan sponsor wants to know that you know enough to keep the plan sponsor out of hot water. A retirement plan committee wants to be informed on topics or questions that they're being asked through their employees and through their plan participants. So they want to be informed so they can stem any questions that might come up the ladder from the organization or down the ladder. So the retirement plan committee has to be fully aware of what the responsibilities are and what the positions of the committee are when it comes to whether it's a fund that's performing poorly. It's a lot better explanation when a participant comes up and says, you know, that ABC fund that we have, it's really in a dumper, and I think it should be removed. And when a committee member says, oh, well, yeah, you know what, we'll look into that, that's not a good answer. But when the committee member says, you know what, we've had it on the watch list for 2 quarters, we're very close to looking for replacements, but there's a reason we're not pulling it yet, and that reason is, that goes a long way. That news travels throughout an organization. So the committee members should always be fully aware of any potential problems in the plan. And then last, the retirement committee wants to feel comfortable that their advisor, which hopefully is you, has their plan in good standing in the event of an audit from anywhere, the DOL, IRS, CPA, or any other entity. Again, that's a feeling that you're kind of selling, that you're delivering, and they want to know that you have their best interest at hand when you are overseeing their plan. So this is what I would say is a microcosm of what we have available for both advisors as well as the plan sponsors. We do have a product that's TRACE, and that's TPSU, Retirement Committee Education. that we've packaged these in. So if anybody wants information on that, you can shoot me an email or shoot an email to Brad Weber or Jeff Weber or anybody at Trow, or just give us a call or shoot us an email, and we're happy to tell you everything about it. So with that, that concludes our program for the day. Now, DJ, I would say, and when you submit for CE for attending this course, if you just submit CE February 28 retirement committee, and then we can update your transcript from a CE standpoint. But DJ, let's open the lines and see if we have any questions, quick, please.
Yeah, and since we have so many people on the call, if you want to go ahead and ask a question verbally, just use *6 to unmute your line. Otherwise, if you want to put your question in the chat, I will go ahead and read it and or unmute you, and we'll go ahead and get you answered. And I have been kind of answering questions here, Steph, just so you're aware, that are unrelated to the topic, but more on CE.
Oh, okay. Does anybody have any questions? This is your time to get it in.
I got nothing additional here.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Well, thank you very much. Do what?
So it's a quiet group today, unlike our other day. Actually, the question did just come in. How do they get a copy of the presentation?
Let's see. We can make this available. If you want, I would say just shoot me an email or shoot DJ an email, and we can send you what we have out.
Another question: do we have any samples of some of these committee charters?
No, that's kind of a legal binding document, and we as Trow stay out of that, as do most providers. So it would be best to, I mean, most corporations, most organizations are going to have the charter and the charter language, and if not, they should be getting it from an attorney, because you don't want to be in the position where you're drafting legal documents. Okay.
Oh, we got one more. Right. Any comment on having the title of a wealth advisor versus plan advisor to a plan?
I don't know. I don't know. Okay, we'll start there. And that's a great question, but to me, wealth advisor says that you're working with individuals to assist them in amassing wealth. And if it has plan in there, it pretty much defines that you're working with the plan. But I don't know from a legal standpoint, I don't know the distinction. That's a good question to bring up at Napa when we're surrounded by many attorneys.
Okay. Any sample dashboard reports for committees? I like this concept and have seen it used in not-for-profit board meetings.
Yeah, I mean, I know providers there are a lot of different ones out, and I don't think there's one right or wrong one. And when I was as an advisor, what I would like to do would be to take summaries from many different reports and create my own dashboard. And the reason I like doing that was it would enable you to add and subtract. But that was years ago, and I would say that there's probably a lot of flexibility on pre-approved dashboards now that uh, that it would be easier to do that than working them up by hand. So I don't think there's one specific. You might grab a couple of them and just show them to your clients and say, is there one of these you prefer? And when you do that, I'd go with and let them know which one you think is the best, because that's really what they're hiring you for, is they want to hear that. So no, I would just take a look at what's out there, because anything from 2 years ago is probably old now. I'd want to see state of the art, what's available today. Okay. Anything else, DJ, coming in?
Nope. Looks like we're good.
Okay, great. Well, I appreciate everybody joining us today. If you have any specific questions, shoot us an email or give a call. We're happy to speak with you and help you out any way we can. So, with that, thank you very much, and this will conclude the call for today.
Thank you, everybody.